the Nerd Wave here, and I'm going to be doing a response video today. And this is a response to the Camelot331 video, I'm 31 and have no friends video. I did watch it, I think it was posted last week or a little before last week. And, you know, I watched it and then I watched it again, and, it did hit home. It hit home because, Cody's story was extremely relatable. And I'm sure it's relatable for a lot of us. So I'm gonna link the video in the description. So if you want to go check that out, first, please feel free. So basically in the video, he's kind of talking about how at some point he kind of hit a point in life when he realized he didn't really have any friends, or at least that's what his perception was, that he had no friends. Kind of going back to maybe my grade school years. I was never the popular kid. I recall, back then it's like, to be popular, you had to be really into sports, very athletic or very charismatic, very, it's like you had to have this certain set of criteria to be cool or popular or part of the popular clique. I went to a Catholic school growing up, and it was a pretty small school, maybe 300 students in the whole school. So our class, our particular grade was maybe 30, 40 kids tops. So, we kind of grew up with the same group of kids, pretty much all of grade school. And again, I was never popular, but I did have my close circle of friends, and we were kind of how would you describe us? Maybe, kind of like an outsider group. We were just kind of the kids who weren't popular. There were kind of gamers there, or nerds, or, people who weren't necessarily into the same things that the more popular kids were into. So we just kind of befriended each other through the process of going to school and finding out, maybe we had a few things in common. Maybe we had nothing in common outside of the fact that we just weren't popular, but it was enough. That was enough to get us through. But, time went on, and, I did have several good friends from grade school, and then we hit high school, and, being 13 years old, we kind of drifted apart pretty quickly after middle school, and even though we all lived in the same city, interestingly enough, and, I'd run into them here and again, but for the most part, after middle school was done, like, that was it. They went their way and I went mine, and that was all. And then high school was kind of similar, just on a much larger scale. And there were lots of different cliques in high school, and you had the rich kids clique, and you had the jocks, but the jocks were kind of friends by sport. The basketball guys hung out with the basketball guys, the football guys hung out with the football guys, and so on. And then our group was just kind of this, again, same thing. It was kind of just a motley crew, ragtag, just random people who ended up just hanging out, and we all got along great, and our group just kind of formed. It's like we didn't necessarily have a lot of similarities in common. Some of us did, some of us didn't. But had a nice close circle of friends, and you do need friends to get through. Human beings, we're social creatures. We need friends. We need friendships. We need relationships, because that's just how we're built. Even if it's just one good friend can make the difference between your sanity, being totally crazy, and having some sanity in your life. So high school came and went, And then when you kind of get into, after high school, and, that's where people really start to leave, because people start to become adults. Um, so, what's there to say really is, after I finished high school, I didn't know really what I wanted to do with my life. So I went to junior college first, to save some money and try to sort things out and see what direction I wanted to go in life. Um, so of course, going to JC, I did make some new friends. I had my best friend at the time, and he had some friends, so they became mutual friends, and that's kind of how our group sort of formed. But when you hit college, there's a lot less time. Contrary to popular belief, there seems to be a lot less idle time just kind of chill and hang out and do stuff. You do have that time, but people aren't really hanging out in cliques, especially at, like, say, a junior college, where it's more of a commuter college. There's a lot of adults who attend, and they work full time, so they're not hanging out after class and wanting to do stuff. They go to class and then go home, or they go to work or wherever. But still had quite a few friends at JC. I started working my first part-time job around there. I actually worked for the Disneyland Resort for 2 years, and that's where I actually made quite a few friends. A lot of people I shared interests with. Video games. I was also getting into cars at that time. Sort of in my late teens. I'd always liked cars. As a hobby aside from gaming. I always had an automotive passion. Couldn't work on a car worth a damn. I have done basic things. I could change oil. I changed spark plugs. I've done, basic part installs, but I wasn't very mechanically inclined. In fact, I'm kind of clumsy. So I'm the guy you don't want working on your car. I make, I can be helpful, an extra set of hands for moving things and stuff like that. But yeah, I just wasn't very mechanically inclined, nor did I enjoy that part. But I love to read about them. I love watching, our house was always full of magazines, stacked magazines, Auto Week and Motor Trend and Road and Track, Car and Driver, you name it. My dad was also really into cars, so we always had a ton floating around. Anyway, that's a story for another day. So we started making a lot of, I made a lot of friends with like-minded, some people who were like-minded, and it was great. Most of my coworkers were about the same age, some, late teens, early 20s, a lot of college kids, some worked there full time, and it was just great just because we were all kind of in that same stage of life. So, at work, we got along very well, and even after work, we hung out. Kind of the thing to do was, there's several Denny's in the vicinity, outside the Disney park, and we had one particular one we'd go to, and I used to work a lot of night shift, a lot of second shift. So, like, say in the summer, when the park would close late, I wouldn't be done till, we'd get off work at 3 a.m. sometimes, when it was really busy. Typically if the park closed at midnight, we'd be off 3 hours after whatever time the park closed. So, it could be pretty, some pretty long days, some very, very long days. So, after having a crazy long day and dealing with, angry guests and, very, very, very very overly entitled guests, some of them, again, but we can make another video, about that, because that's a whole nother topic I can rant about for a while. It was just great getting to go and kick back and just, kind of just shoot the shit, with your coworkers, with your friends, and just, getting to talk smack and, just kind of de-stress. And that was very satisfying. And, you know, there were some days where we'd be there till like 5, 6 in the morning, realizing like, wow, the sun's coming up. We better go home. And it's like, wow, like, how did I have the energy to do that? Like, how did I have I guess at that point in my life, this was in sort of the early mid 2000s. So I was like 20 years old or so. So I had a lot of energy. Now it's like, yeah, the thought of that just makes me tired. It's like, no thanks. I'm getting old. I want to go to bed. But it was a great time in my life. We had a lot of fun, and I made, had a lot of friends, and it was great. It was great, but life goes on, and I ended up switching jobs because of my schedule, and I needed a schedule that was more school friendly, because I was going to school full time, and unfortunately Disney wasn't really working well with my school schedule, so it was time to go. And I ended up working at a hospital for many years until I finished school, and noticeably different. Certainly a much smaller place and a lot less coworkers, but a lot of wonderful, amazing, great people. And while I could say we were friends in the sense that we got along very well at work, we didn't really hang out outside of work at all, really. Maybe I had a few coworkers, like on Friday after work, we'd go to this bar down the street from work, and we'd order a brew or two, just hang out, chill. I used to work weekends though, so Friday night for me was Monday, because I worked Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then when I finished school, I picked up Mondays as well. So for me, it was Monday night, but for my other coworkers and my boss, it was Friday night for them. So they were out ready to celebrate and just kick off the weekend, and my week was just starting. But still, it was just nice getting to go hang out with them, and I enjoyed that as well. But again, life goes on, and we moved on from there. And when I finished school, well, actually, I should backtrack a bit. I finished JC and transferred to a 4-year college, and it was still kind of a commuter college, state college in California. So, if you're familiar with the school system here, some of them, I don't know, I'd say the UC schools tend to be more of a research, academia type environment, and the state schools seem to be a bit more commuterish. We had dorm rooms and all that stuff, but it was mostly the people I knew were by and large similar to me, in school full time, working part time, some working full time as well. Don't know how they did that. I struggled just to do it just to work part time and hold down school full time. But when I transferred to the 4-year at JC, I wasn't really involved too much in school. I just kind of did that, went to class, hung out with my friends, and went home. But when I transferred to the 4-year, I became more involved in student activities, professional student groups. So that was taking up a lot of time, but I also wouldn't call them friends, maybe more colleagues, business colleagues, I think would be a more appropriate term. And although we did hang out, from time to time outside of class, it was mostly centered around academia, networking and stuff, not just, just chilling. And again, life moved on and we continued forward. So graduated from there, and I ended up staying at the hospital for another year until I found my first full-time job, like my first 40-hour week, benefits, all that stuff, a year later. Finally, I settled in, so it's like, all right, awesome, we're moving on in life. And, by then it was, oh gosh, 2012? Yeah, 2012. So, I was, in my sort of like mid late 20s by then, and it's like, okay, now we're hitting a different phase in life here, and I kind of stopped. Well, it's not something I thought about at first, but when you're working like part-time jobs and you're working, just kind of, just more jobs, not like, you're not in your career yet, so to speak. It's there's a lot more leeway. There's a lot more there's less pressure in the sense that, what, if I lost this job working part-time at Chili's bussing tables, whatever, it's like, it's not a big deal. I can go to Red Lobster and bus tables. I can go to Applebee's and bus tables. No big deal. I could always leave and go. There's less risk. If some bad things kind of transpired, say, I mean, it could have been any reason. I guess the point I was trying to come across is, when you're in your career, you look at things differently because there's more risk. Would you want to risk your career? Like, say for instance, when I worked, just my part-time jobs, I did end up dating someone I worked part-time with, and that went on a couple years. But I wouldn't do that in my current situation. I would never date a coworker. I currently work for a kind of a smaller to mid-sized company. So there's about 50, 60 of us. So it's not a big company to begin with. There's really no one there I'd be interested in dating anyway. But again, point aside, if there was to be a relationship, you have to disclose it to your superior. They discourage it anyway, although they don't really flat out ban it and say, no, you can't date your coworker, but they do forbid it in a sense if, say, it was a manager and a subordinate. Yeah, that's not allowed at all. But say it was, say you have someone in accounting dating someone in marketing, you know, there's no real conflict there in terms of, neither is the subordinate nor the superior. Again, the company still doesn't like it. They don't encourage it, but they don't flat out say you can't do it. But you have to disclose a relationship, if one were to begin. But in my opinion, it's not worth the risk, because all it takes is that. Because what's going to happen is either you're going to start a relationship, and either one, you're going to get married or enter into a long-term serious relationship, or you're going to break up, which is more than likely the case. And people handle breakups very differently depending on the circumstances. So you could end up in a real unusual situation, a real bad situation, depending on, what the power dynamics are at the company you work, who knows who's friends with who puts the gossip out there first. It's a lot of things to consider, and it's like, is it really worth the drama, the stress, and then have to see that person all the time at work? It's like, it's not really the way to go. But anyway, we went off on a tangent there. So, looking back, and, I probably had maybe, one or two kind of friends from my current, from my current job. But, these generally weren't people I spent time with outside of work. We'd go to lunch here and again and hang out during lunch and talk and stuff, but we weren't really friends. So that made me think too. It's like, well, wait a second, what happened? Growing up, I always felt like I had this huge group of friends, and I look around now. It's like, you know what? I don't have just that big group of friends, and even outside of work, I have a group of friends who are also car enthusiasts. And, we'd have, pre-COVID, we'd have pretty much a weekly car meet. We just hang out, we grab a bite to eat, we talk and chat. And originally, what brought us together was our love of cars, but eventually we just became friends for other reasons. We had other interests. So it's kind of neat how one thing can kind of bring people together and, kind of build this friendship, build this relationship from one interest can turn into many interests. And we'd go to car shows together, we'd do barbecues together, we'd go on cruises, all sorts of things. Now we haven't done so since COVID started, so hopefully once things start to settle down, people are getting vaccinated now. We're starting to see some hope finally. So hopefully once things calm down a bit, people are more comfortable to come out and want to spend time together in person again. That would be great, because that was always something really fun to look through, to look forward to every week was, and we usually meet on Wednesday evening. So it was this, kind of weird. It's like, Wednesday, why Wednesday? It's like Wednesday's just this midday in the week, pump day halfway through the week, and it's just a nice little kind of a breather, a nice little fun activity, between then and the weekend. So, yeah, hopefully we get to start doing that again soon. I do miss that for sure. So yeah, you're kind of looking around, you're realizing, do you have friends at all? I do. I have friends. I still hang out with my best friend, and but he's got a crazy schedule. Sometimes he works late. He doesn't have like a normal schedule like some people, so making time is can be challenging. But I try to see him, at least a couple times a month, few times a month. We make time, just to hang out, and that's kind of the great thing about it is, you can just kind of pick up. I think there was at one point, I wouldn't see him for a whole month at a time, and it's like, wow, like, what happened? But life just gets in the way. Life just kind of does its own thing, and it's like we're just along for the ride, but we can just pick up exactly where we left off, and that's great, because a lot of friendships and a lot of people can't do that. They can't survive lots of time apart and lots of time away without there being trouble. And some people are, what's the word I want to use, they're more high maintenance. They need constant attention. Some people need less attention. And then I sat and looked. It's like, well, where did my friends go? Some people just grow apart. Simply put, people interests change. You're not as close as you once were, and it's not necessarily on bad terms. It's not like you started hating these people and you decided, well, I don't want to be their friend anymore. People do grow up. People get older, they get married. When you get married, typically children follow, and when you get, once you're married and you have children, your priorities totally change. It's not just like, hey, it's a random Thursday night. Do you want to come down and, we're gonna, drink a couple of beers and play some video games? Yeah, sure. But when you have responsibilities like that, when you have a spouse and you have a child, it's not like you can just drop all those responsibilities on a dime just to hang out with your friends. And although I'd argue it's still important to maintain some level, not of autonomy, but some semblance that you are still a unique individual and you still have a life. You have a life outside of your spouse, your family, and your kids and stuff. And I think if you take care of business and you take care of your family, you do deserve to have some free time to yourself. Absolutely. People get married, they have children, people move away. They leave the city, they leave the state, they leave the country. And hanging out isn't just a matter of just, driving to your buddy's house who's 20 minutes away. Sometimes it means you have to call or text or Skype or whatever because they're not as accessible as they were before. People change jobs, and then sometimes even just simply a job change, because you're less in proximity to this person in their life. It's like you kind of drift out of each other's orbit, and slowly but surely you don't really you don't stay close, because and then you kind of figure, it's like, well, was it really a friendship, or was it just a friendship of convenience? It's like, that's kind of an interesting point. So, kind of sitting there and reflecting on that, I'm like, well, is that it? Is that the whole story? Is it just like, well, people get up and they move on and they move out? And I could say that's the case for a lot of my friends, but that's not everyone. I think also as we get older, because we have less free time, even in my case, I'm not married, I don't have any children, so I don't have those major responsibilities, so to speak, in my life. But I'm still busy. I keep very busy. I have a full-time job. I do the YouTube thing on the side. I've got, obviously gaming is a big part of my life. That's my hobby. Into cars as well. That takes time. I like to read. I've got a giant bookshelf full of books that are only half read, and I'm still trying to get through. So that also takes time. And so just dealing with the day-to-day things, and that alone can keep us all busy. So you kind of say, it's like, well, our time in a way kind of seems, our time is more precious as we get older. And because your time is finite, you realize how little free time you have. People are more particular, and myself, I am pickier with who I want to spend my time with. And this isn't necessarily to be mean. It's like, well, you're not good enough to spend time with, or I don't, my time is more valuable than you. No, it's more of a, it's just more of like, I just don't have the time to just drop what I'm doing and go and hang out at someone's house all the time, just just to waste time and do the same things I would doing at home. Or maybe, it's like, well, this night I got to vacuum tonight and clean the kitchen and do some laundry. So, I don't necessarily have time to go down and just, hang out at someone's house and just, not do anything. We all make time for the important things and the important people in our life, certainly. Or if we don't, we should. Because when you can identify the people who don't, you kind of realize, those people may not be your true friends. Those people may just be friends out of convenience, or maybe they're more acquaintances, which it's not a bad thing. Having acquaintances isn't necessarily a negative. Just because they're not your friends doesn't mean that they don't necessarily care about you, or doesn't mean that you guys just can't get along and hang out and have a good time. Not everyone has to be your friend. Not everyone, you hang out with has to be super close. But yeah, it got me thinking, how much that's changed. It's like your family kind of becomes your primary social circle in a way, for those people who have gotten old and have started their own families, and that's who they spend most of their time with. So it's just, just watching the video really made me kind of sit back and think and reflect a bit. And it's not all bad. I think there was, it was pretty sad to listen to, but it was also, kind of a beautiful thing, that, someone was able to kind of be vulnerable in a world where we're not supposed to share our feelings or open up, particularly, if you're a man, you know, people are afraid of, comments from other people who are like, that would have been negative or mean, but, so, kudos to you, Cody, thank you for sharing. Again, I'm sure we can all relate to your story in one way or another, because we've all gone through it, especially those of us who are getting a little older, maybe in the 30s and up crowd. Our view on life and our, what our priorities are not the same from 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but they should be different. They should be different. They should have, changed over time, because, life is about change. People change, you change, I change, our opinions change, our perception of the world around us, does change over time. And if it doesn't, if everything is constant, you kind of have to sit back and think, it's like, well, am I living? Am I just super stubborn and I don't change my opinions at all? Or am I just not living because nothing has changed? So it's like, am I, some people kind of go and they get stuck in a certain portion of their life and they don't want to leave, and I get it. I understand. I went through it myself. Sometime in my early to mid 20s, I was even questioning if I even wanted to stay in school. If I even wanted to, did I want to go get a 4-year degree? Did I even want to, go down this path that, I thought I was going down? Looking at alternatives and looking at, where I was looking, where I saw my life leading. And it was just kind of cool. Just, I think, one semester in JC, I ended up I dropped all my classes. Like, I signed up for 12 units, whatever. I think by the third, fourth weekend, I was like, you know what? This semester, we're taking a sabbatical. We're not gonna go to class this semester. We're gonna work. I worked part-time. I played video games. I hung out with my friends. So I was able to do more in a sense. Well, I kind of try to figure out. It's like, okay, what are you gonna do? I could have stayed at my job, moved up to full-time, gotten some benefits, made a little more money, made a little, gotten some of the full-time perks, and gone that route. And in the short term, I would have been happier, more than likely. But then I also think of career longevity and would I want to be doing something like that in 5-10 years? And how hard would it be to move up without a college degree? How hard would it be to transfer somewhere else? And I mean, I sat down and I listed and I wrote out all the pros and cons, and it was like, you know what? Nah. We should definitely finish school, and we should definitely go down the path I was looking at. But just the experience of having that semester just to enjoy my youth, so to speak, I think that was the best decision I could have made, because had I kept going and forcing myself, I might have just quit altogether and said, you know what, screw it. We're gonna make a more impulsive decision, focus on the short term, and to hell with the future for now. And I could have stayed in that phase of just could have gone and worked and gone out to the bar, had some drinks after work, and just taken such a more low-key approach to it. And it might have been more fun in the short term, but I would have probably not liked where I ended up, or maybe it would have taken me longer to get where I did end up. So I definitely, I don't regret taking the time to do it. But I think it was important that I did because, it was just, it just seemed like, from high school straight to college. And I was just in this whirlwind of like, whoa, like, what am I doing? What the heck am I doing? And, the friends you made along the way played a big role in that. And it is interesting to look back on it because, friends and people in your life in general kind of come and go in your life. Whether it's, acquaintances, good friends, romantic relationships, they come and go. They play a role. They play a part in your life, but you are the star, of your life. Was it that William Shakespeare, all the world's a stage, and all of us are merely players. Well, you're the star of your own show. You are the star. You are number one. Everyone else is supporting cast or an extra in your life. In your life, you're the star. So, some people have important roles. Some people have little roles. Some people just make brief little appearances and then they're gone for one reason or another. So you kind of look back, it's like, wow, that's kind of trippy how, you could go from being really pretty close friends, good enough friends with people, and then the next day they're gone. It's like, and it's almost as if you were never friends or coworkers or acquaintances at all. They're just out of your life. But the world keeps spinning. Life goes on and we move on and we push forward because that's what we got to do. So, I think the video, if anything, kind of really made me, realize the importance of friendship. Whether you have one good friend or a lot of good friends, be grateful, put the effort in, put the time in to keep them in your life. Because, a good friendship, there's just you can't put a price on a good friendship, on a loyal friend. It's absolutely priceless. And again, whether you have one or you have 10 or 20, I don't know how people manage to have so many friends nowadays. Like, now looking back, I'm like, maintaining that many friendships takes a long time, takes a lot of time to maintain. So, I'm more of a quality, in quality versus quantity, quality is going to win pretty much all the time. And in friendship, that's definitely the case. Because in my opinion, having a couple dozen acquaintances that you just party with, that does not equal one friend who you can count on to be there for you at all times. And I think as we get older, you kind of see that, you see that's more important than just having a bunch of people to call up with and hang out, because, one day those people may not be around. They're going to move on with their life. You're going to move on with your life, and that'll be that, and it's not a bad thing. It's not a mean thing. It's not like, it doesn't have to be taken in a negative. If you reframe that into a positive, it's like, what, this person and I maybe we were friends or just acquaintances for a short period, but the interactions you had changed each other's life. Even in a small way, you changed each other's life. So it's kind of incredible, actually. It's like, what, they may have changed your opinion on something. They may have introduced you to a hobby. They may have introduced you to another friend that maybe you still keep in touch with, but they don't. There's lots of what ifs. Wow. So this reaction video went on a little further than I thought it would. It's coming on 40 minutes here. So I'm going to wrap it up here. But I'm curious to know what you guys think. Leave your comments or questions below, and yeah, it's again, definitely go watch the Camelot 331 video and check it out. I think you'll walk away from that. You know, it's gonna affect everyone a little differently, but it kind of hit right in the feels for me because I just can totally relate to a story. But anywho, thanks again for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed the content, please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one. Later days.